I know you've had him for 5 days.
Dennis Hopper's trailer smelled so bad, crew members refused to go inside, and that wasn't even the worst of it.
Well, first of all, I was a beatnik,
Well,
which was like one of the original things. I was a beatnik. That was a long time ago. That was in the 50s.
Right.
Were the beatniks, and the beatniks that were beatniks then are now called hippies.
From Val Kilmer skipping showers in the Australian jungle to Russell Crowe sweating through armor on Gladiator, Hollywood's hygiene horrors didn't end with the Golden Age. Dennis Hopper, Hollywood's filthiest rebel. Dennis Hopper didn't just play wild characters, he lived like one. In the 1970s, his off-screen life made even the craziest movie roles look tame. During the filming of Easy Rider, Hopper was deep in his outlaw era, barely sleeping, barely eating, and definitely not showering. Crew members said he'd wear the same shirt for a week straight. By the end of filming, that shirt could probably walk off set on its own. Things only got worse by the time he joined Apocalypse Now. Hopper was constantly high, his trailer was a biohazard, and his clothes looked and smelled like they hadn't seen soap in months. Director Francis Ford Coppola later described his living space as total chaos. He reeked of sweat, cigarettes, and whatever he'd spilled on himself that day. But the smell wasn't even the worst part. Hopper reportedly refused to use the bathroom like a normal person, instead urinating into empty bottles and leaving them around his trailer. Crew members entered only when absolutely necessary, and even then, only while holding their breath. Dental hygiene wasn't his thing either. Co-stars said his breath could stop a scene cold. Some actors literally held their breath while working with him. Makeup artists had their own war stories: greasy hair, flaky skin, food stuck in his beard. They weren't trying to make him look handsome, they were just trying to make him tolerable. Yet, despite the smell, the chaos, and the madness, Hollywood kept hiring him, because beneath the grime, Dennis Hopper was electric.
I'm gonna kill you.
His performances burned with something raw and unpredictable, and producers couldn't resist. Hopper called it living free, everyone else called it a health hazard. He didn't care how he looked or smelled as long as the camera was rolling. And for better or worse, that's exactly what made him unforgettable. Shelley Duvall, when stress replaced self-care. Not every story about poor hygiene in Hollywood is funny. For Shelley Duvall, it wasn't rebellion or laziness, it was survival. When she filmed The Shining, Duvall was pushed to her emotional breaking point.
The back got cut.
Need to trim this.
Hunks of hair.
Director Stanley Kubrick, known for his obsessive methods, demanded take after take, sometimes over 100 of the same agonizing scene. He isolated her from the rest of the cast, kept her under constant pressure, and made her live inside her character's unraveling mind. The toll showed. Crew members began to notice that Duvall was deteriorating not just emotionally, but physically. Her hair turned greasy, her clothes went unwashed, and her eyes were shadowed with exhaustion. Under relentless stress, she started losing hair. In interviews, she later admitted she cried every single day on set. Her dressing room reportedly smelled of sweat and tears. She was sleep-deprived, dehydrated, and too overwhelmed to think about hygiene. Makeup artists tried to keep up reapplying foundation after every take because her face would flush and sweat from the anxiety. Some days, her wardrobe team had to spray her costume down just to make it wearable again. Kubrick didn't ease up, in fact. He studied her exhaustion. He noted how worn down she looked and used it to push her performance deeper into realism. Other crew members said they weren't even allowed to comfort her, as Kubrick believed sympathy would ruin the authenticity of her fear.
For an entire day, because the role required me to cry all day long, every day.
By the end of filming, Shelley Duvall was emotionally shattered and physically drained. She delivered one of the most raw, haunting performances in movie history, but at a devastating cost. She gave everything to that role, her energy, her peace of mind, even her basic self-care. When the camera stopped, the horror didn't end for her. Sometimes, the scariest thing about The Shining wasn't the hotel, it was what happened behind the scenes. Val Kilmer, The Island of Ego and Body Odor. By the mid-1990s, Val Kilmer had a reputation brilliant, intense, and impossible to work with. But nothing could prepare the cast of The Island of Dr. Moreau for what they were about to endure or smell. Fresh off a messy divorce and spiraling through personal chaos, Kilmer arrived on set angry, erratic, and, according to crew members, unbathed. Filming took place in the suffocating humidity of the Australian jungle, sweat, heat, and mosquitoes everywhere.
I expected the unexpected, and I was satisfied in the
Most actors hit the showers twice a day just to survive. Kilmer, he skipped them entirely. He'd show up sticky and disheveled, wearing the same clothes from the day before. Makeup artists described him as a walking humidity trap. Co-stars tried to keep their distance, but the smell made that almost impossible. The costume department fought a losing battle. His wardrobe had to be sprayed down with industrial-strength fabric, fresheners between takes, and assistants sometimes wore masks or dabbed menthol under their noses to cope. One crew member even joked that Kilmer's clothes were marked by the day of the week, so no one would accidentally touch Monday's shirt on Wednesday. Kilmer brushed off complaints as exaggerations, but behind the scenes, it was a running joke. Director John Frankenheimer, who inherited the chaotic production, reportedly said he'd fire Kilmer in a heartbeat if the studio would let him. The crew started calling him the human fog because even after he left a room, his smell lingered like a ghost. Ironically, his co-star Marlon Brando, himself infamous for poor hygiene, was also on set.
Oh, you'll like it. I like it.
Together, they turned the production into a sensory nightmare. At one point, tensions got so bad that their scenes had to be filmed separately, partly for creative reasons and partly for hygiene. Kilmer's talent was undeniable, but on Dr. Moreau, it wasn't his acting that people remembered, it was the odor and the attitude that came with it. Brilliant, difficult, and unmistakable, even from across the jungle. Russell Crowe, the gladiator who didn't believe in deodorant. He could conquer empires on screen, but apparently not the concept of personal hygiene. By the early 2000s, Russell Crowe's reputation for being, let's say, earthy, was almost as famous as his temper. Crowe never tried to be Hollywood polished. He liked to keep things real, which in his case meant skipping deodorant, ignoring showers, and embracing the rugged, sweaty image of a man who'd rather fight than freshen up. One British TV host once joked that Crowe's body odor could singe your eyebrows off. It wasn't just a punchline, people who worked with him agreed. Crew members from films like Gladiator and Master and Commander later described him as authentically stinky. On Gladiator,
Massimo.
his commitment to staying in character extended far beyond the camera. He'd spend hours in heavy armor under the scorching sun, refusing to change or wash between scenes. By the end of the day, his costume reportedly smelled so bad it had to be stored separately for everyone's safety. Makeup artists said he'd often show up with unwashed hair and clothes, still damp with the previous day's sweat.
You, gladiatore, you are going on.
Before close-ups, assistants wiped him down with alcohol pads just to make him camera-ready. In the makeup trailer, they'd joke about drawing straws to decide who had to work on him first, and whoever lost always lit an air freshener. Even extras were allegedly warned not to stand too close unless absolutely necessary, especially after lunch, when things somehow got worse. Crowe didn't seem to mind. He brushed off the rumors, once joking in an interview that a little dirt never hurt anyone. To him, sweat was part of the performance, part of being a man. And sure, it worked on screen. He was raw, tough, magnetic. But off camera, Russell Crowe's realism came with an odor no one could forget. A true gladiator of both the battlefield and the bacteria. Julia Roberts, the Queen of Natural. After a parade of Hollywood legends who skipped soap entirely, Julia Roberts might sound almost wholesome by comparison. But even America's sweetheart has her quirks, and they smell a little natural. Unlike most A-listers with entire teams dedicated to keeping them camera-ready, Roberts has proudly avoided deodorant for decades. She's spoken about it openly, saying she doesn't use traditional antiperspirants because of the chemicals. Instead, she relies on natural oils, or sometimes, nothing at all. She's also famously relaxed about body hair.
Oh? I'd like to hear your reason.
In interviews, she's said that shaving simply doesn't matter to her comfort or confidence, which, honestly, is kind of refreshing. On set, though, that back-to-nature lifestyle can get tricky. Crew members from several productions have quietly admitted that after long outdoor shoots under bright lights, the air around her could get earthy. One insider from a mid-2010 seconds film claimed that while Roberts was always kind and professional, essential oils weren't exactly doing the heavy lifting. Co-stars sometimes asked for extra fans or ventilation during close scenes, and stylists learned to keep spare outfits nearby.
You really don't understand the first thing about me, do you?
Not because she was a diva, but because nature doesn't care about call times. Still, Roberts never hid who she was. She once told a reporter, "People are too afraid of a little sweat." That became her quiet rebellion, an actress refusing to conform to Hollywood's impossible beauty routine. Even on red carpets, she's shown up with visible underarm hair and a confident grin, as if to say, "This is me, deal with it." And really, people did. Fans love her precisely for that authenticity. Julia Roberts might not smell like a bottle of Chanel No. 5, but she's proof that sometimes being real is the best fragrance of all.